Okay. So tonight is Beis Iyar, the Rebbe Maharash's birthday. There happens to be, in Lubavitch, we're quite particular about places, names of people, and dates. Every birthday of a Rebbe or Rebbetzin, the day of the passing, the Friedrich Rebbe passed on all of this information, hundreds and thousands of details. And we have a wealth of knowledge that was transmitted, and almost all of it we have it down pat. To a day, to a place, etc. However, a couple episodes remained in doubt for a long time. For example, I'll give a couple examples. One of them is the year the Mittel Rebbe came out of jail. There was a doubt which year it was. Was it, you see, the Mittel Rebbe passed away, it was the 9th of Kislev, Tov Kuf Peiches. He came out of jail on Yud Kislev. The question is, was it 1 year before or 2 years before? And it remained a suffix, it remained a question by the Rabbeim themselves. In Beis Harav, the family itself wasn't sure. It was a question for years. Now it's pretty much been accepted that it was 1 year before he passed away. A year minus a day, which means he never celebrated it. And that's actually why for years Yud Kislev was never a big holiday, because the Mittel Rebbe himself passed away. He never had a chance to celebrate because Yud Kislev he went out, the next Tes Kislev he passed away. It explains why it was a subdued Yom Tov, because when the first anniversary came around, everyone's sitting Shiva. But there was a suffix, it could have been that it actually happened 2 years before, and then that whole theory gets thrown out. Another example is the year that Tzemach Tzedek was born. There were 3 opinions. If you look in the Friedrich Rebbe Sichos, you'll find 3. The date we know is Erev Rosh Hashanah. But we don't know, was the year Tov Kuf Nun, a year before Tov Kuf Mem Tes, which is 1789, or Tov Kuf Mem Ches. There were 3 different dates. It was shrouded in mystery. The reason is because if I tell you somebody was born Erev Rosh Hashanah Tov Shin Pei Daled, does that mean the Rosh Hashanah is Tov Shin Pei Daled and I'm talking about a day before? Or no, I mean it's Erev Rosh Hashanah, the last day of Tov Shin Pei Daled. That's where the question comes from. So, someone said that Tzemach Tzedek was born Erev Rosh Hashanah Tov Kuf Nun. Well, does that mean the day before Tov Kuf Nun starts, or the last day of, etc., etc.? So, that was another date that was shrouded in mystery. So, to the Rebbe Maharash's birthday, there were 2 questions. Number 1, what day of the year? Number 1, which year? The Friedrich Rebbe said for a while there was a question if the Rebbe Maharash's birthday was Beis Iyar or Beis Shvat. Yeah. The Rebbe brings in his Rishimus, he hears from the Friedrich Rebbe. For a while it wasn't known. It wasn't known. But now it's been decided it's tonight, Beis Iyar. The question is the year. And the year, it's intriguing. If you open a Hayom Yom, in the entry of Beis Iyar, it says that Rebbe Maharash was born in Tov Kuf Tzadik Gimel, 1833. In the beginning of Hayom Yom, there's a bit of a very short, brief background about the Rabbeim. It says they're a different year, 1834, Tov Kuf Tzadik, a year later. In Hayom Yom itself, between the introduction versus what was placed in the actual day, it's a year discrepancy. So these are a couple examples. They're rare. Usually, the years, the dates, we have down pat, but there were a few things that remained unsure for a long time, and these are 4 examples. Either way, it's accepted that Rebbe Maharash was born in Beis Iyar, and the year that's accepted is not the year that's in the Hayom Yom proper, but in the introduction. That it was 1834. It says 1833 in the Hayom Yom. Well, they say that's when the Rebbe Maharash was conceived. So here's the thing, I'll say a question I have on that. If he was born Beis Iyar, that year, Tov Kuf Tzadik Daled was an Ibur Yar. Okay, so there were 2 others. If he was born Beis Iyar, that means that he wasn't 40 days old when the previous year finished. Halachically, until a baby's 40 days old, it's nothing, it's just liquid. If a woman, if God forbid there's a miscarriage before 40 days, it's halachically nothing. In fact, if a woman miscarries after 30, 35 days as a first child, it's nothing. And if the next child's a boy, it's a firstborn. Once 40 days passes, it's considered a fetus, halachically. And if that was discharged, then the next child is not a firstborn. I actually remember in Australia not too long ago, my father was asked a question. There was a woman who had Nebuch's first kid was a what?
No, what the same thing with abortion?
Exactly, yeah. After 40 days is when, till 40 days is just Maya Ba'alma, the Gemara, just liquid. It's not it's not considered a human in any, just potential life. After 40 days, there's really something there. So my father was asked, there was a woman who had miscarried, and then she had a boy. Now, she was looking back, the first miscarriage happened around 40 days after conception. Couldn't tell exactly, though, was it 39, 41? So they went to the hospital, got all the information they could, to the minutes of the clock, the seconds. They couldn't figure out exactly when the moment of conception was. They couldn't tell, was it 40 days or not? So the halacha was that the new kid is a Suffolk firstborn. So you do a pidyon haben, no bracha. No bracha. Can't make a bracha. Sometimes you buy a pidyon haben, there's no bracha. It could be, this might be the reason.
You do it with a questionable kind.
Okay. Yeah, do you have any certain kind of... Yeah?
Abortion? What are like...
Okay, very quickly. There are generally three opinions as far as abortion. The most lenient is the Maharit, was a big scholar in Tzfas and then in Turkey about 400 years ago. He believes that abortion is just mutilating the body. There's a general prohibition, one cannot mutilate, you can't mutilate the body. It's a general prohibition, but it's not so severe in the terms that it's able to be shoved aside for other considerations. Right? Like a woman getting an ear piercing. You're mutilating the body, but if it's for the sake of beauty, it's no longer mutilation, it's beautification. And, plastic surgery, if there's a need, you can shove that away. So if the issue of abortion is just that the woman is harming a limb of an organ of herself, if there's a pressing need, whether psychological, depression, that would be enough of an excuse to carry out it. What?
Until what point?
It seems like until the baby's born. He believes that. That's the most lenient. Hold on. Don't leave yet. That's one opinion. Okay, yeah. The Tzitz Eliezer Bechlal. Okay, let's do this. This is on a side. So just only because for an important guest asked a question, we can't. We got to address the question. But just very quickly, the Chavis Iyar was a big genius in Germany in the 1600s. He believes the issue of abortion is it's wasting seed, which is a serious prohibition in Torah. But it's not the same as murder. So he holds abortion, wasting seed, the issue is you're destroying potential life. There's no greater potential life than if there's a fetus which is due to come out in a few months. But it's still under the category of wasting seed, zera levatola. The Rogatchover and some others believe that abortion is a tantamount to murder. But it's not a capital crime. You won't get killed in Beis Din for it. So you have a big, there's a gamut range of, right? You have...
Even within the 40 days?
No. Till 40 days is nothing. Yeah. After 40 days. What?
The morning after feels good.
Yeah. Bechlal, a woman has no prohibition of wasting seed. If a woman receives seed from her husband and on her own she destroys it, a woman does not prohibit it in wasting seed on Zera Levatala. So that's the spectrum. It happens to be more recently. Reb Moshe Feinstein, who was a Rav here in Manhattan, was head-to-head against the Tzitz Eliezer, who was a big Rav in Eretz Yisrael. They both passed away. And Reb Moshe Feinstein was vehemently tough with abortion. The Tzitz Eliezer was much more lenient. They generally had it was known that if somebody needed to go through, you wouldn't ask for Moshe Feinstein. That was the type of question you asked Reb Waldenberg, Tzitz Eliezer. Anyhow, let's get back to the thing over here. So, the Rebbe Maharash is born. He's the youngest son of the Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek had 7 boys and 2 girls. 9 kids. The Tzemach Tzedek's father-in-law and uncle, the Mittler Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek married the Mittler Rebbe's daughter, Chaya Mushka. In addition, the Tzemach Tzedek's mother, Dvar Leah, was a Mittler Rebbe's sister. So they were very close family related. The Mittler Rebbe also had 9 kids, but the opposite. He had 7 girls and 2 boys. The Mittler Rebbe had 7 girls and 2 boys. The Tzemach Tzedek had 7 boys and 2 girls. But one of the Tzemach Tzedek's sons, Yaakov, died young. I don't know the exact age, but Yaakov, he died young. So pretty much we only know about 6 sons of the Tzemach Tzedek. The Rebbe Maharash was the youngest, and between him and his oldest brother was over 20 years. Big difference. In fact, some of the Rebbe Maharash's nephews were older than him. And that's going to come up. But the Rebbe Maharash had no chip on his shoulder. He was very confident, and oh boy, did he stand his ground.
Who were his sisters?
There was a Dvar Leah. They all the Rebbe
Named
had.
after his mother?
Yeah, they all had Tzemach Tzedek. Yeah. So let's begin our journey. The Tzemach Tzedek has this boy, and the Tzemach Tzedek was already older. And some of the Tzemach Tzedek's sons are already in their 20s, and it's they have their own families by now, their own kids, and it's cute, you know. They have a new baby brother, and he was born Beis Iyar, and a week later is the bris. The bris of the Tzemach Tzedek was shrouded in mystery.
Maharash.
Thank you. The Rebbe Maharash's bris was shrouded. And this is actually going to be a focal point throughout his life that the Rebbe is going to touch upon. The mystery of the Rebbe Maharash. That really should be the title, the mystery of the Rebbe, and you'll see why. But by the bris, a big crowd came, sure. And it was supposed to be on time. Everything was ready. The Tzemach Tzedek was in his room. And the guests are waiting. The food's ready. And he's just not coming out. He's waiting and waiting. At the bris was one of the Tzemach Tzedek's uncles, one of the sons of the Alter Rebbe, Reb Chaim Avram, who was a tall man, a very, very prestigious fellow, a humble man, a great scholar. And Reb Chaim Avram gave out a comment then. When the Tzemach Tzedek was waiting hour after hour and just not, and you know, people were getting antsy and anxious and excited. And Reb Chaim Avram, he sighed and he said, apparently he's busy with more important guests than us. He gave out a big sigh. I understand that to mean that Tzemach Tzedek was having a vision of his Zayd, the Alter Rebbe, and Reb Chaim Avram is thinking that, you know, he has my father with him. You know, of course he's not going to come out. The Tzemach Tzedek came out with his eyes were red with tears. He said, everyone stay, the bris is going to happen, it's going to happen. He went back to him a few times, in his room, out of his room, till finally the bris takes place. And the Tzemach Tzedek gives the name Shmuel, name out of nowhere. It was not a name in the family of the Rabbeim, Shmuel. So by the meal, the Tzemach Tzedek, his second oldest son, Yehuda Leib, he says, Tata, maybe you named the little boy after Shmuel Hanavi. So he says, the Tzemach Tzedek says, no. There was a water carrier in the city of Polotsk. His name was Shmuel. I named him after him. And the Tzemach Tzedek finished. He quoted a Gemara in Baba Basra, Chacham Adif Menavi. A Chacham is greater than a prophet. You think I named him after Shmuel the prophet. No, I got even better. Shmuel the water carrier. He was a Chacham, a hidden tzaddik, a hidden saint. The Rebbe Maharash is named after him. And then the Tzemach Tzedek said like this. How long does a person live? Yemei Shnei Seinu Bohem, 70 years, 80 years. It could be 70, it could be 80, or Bohem. Yemei Shnei Seinu Bohem. How much is Bohem? Beis is 2, Hey is 5, Mem is 40. With the letters, so 47 plus the letters. That's what he said. Very strange comments. And ultimately, that was exactly the amount of years that Rebbe Maharash lived.
47?
Well, he was 48 in the 49th year. So, close enough. But the Rebbe Maharash commented on this a couple months before he passed away. The Rebbe Maharash said, he remembered from his bris. I don't know. That's pretty, that would be wild. No, but someone had told him. He probably heard the story. And the Rebbe Maharash, a couple months before he passed away, he said that by my bris, my father hinted to the fact that some people live a life of bohem. And he said that, and then he passed away. So that was so the whole bris, the fact that he was named after a hidden tzaddik, the fact that Tzemach Tzedek prophesied pretty much how long he would live. The Rebbe Maharash lived the shortest of all the Rabbeim. After him, the Mittel Rebbe was 54. The Rebbe Maharash was 48. And he was sick, and we're going to see about that. Very sad, about how ill he was throughout his life.
Isn't that why the Tzemach Tzedek waited? Was because he had to wait for the funeral?
I've heard that. I don't know where that's sourced. So it's possible. I don't know.
Nobody knew, and there was a rich guy in the town, and they did this second, and he waited, and then they found out later that afterwards.
No, I've heard that story, that he waited for the bris, because, it's possible. Fine. The Rebbe Maharash grows up, and he was a wonder child. He was brilliant. Besides for that, he was charming. The Friedrich Rebbe describes that he was good looking, he was funny, he was sharp, he was witty, and he was a Baal Chen. He was charming, and everyone loved to chat with him. He had a hobby, used to collect knives. Famous story that one chassid told the Rebbe Maharash, he says, Shmuel, he says, I have a pocket knife over here. I'll give it to you to add to your collection. You have to answer my question. The Rebbe Maharash was a boy then. He asked him, where can one find God? So the Maharash told him, I'll give you my entire collection if you could tell me where a person can't find God. And the guy liked the answer, and the Rebbe Maharash got the knife. The Friedrich Rebbe says that Rebbe Maharash was a stiffer. He was mischievous. But he spent most of his day learning. So he found his time to make a bit of a ruckus here and there, but he was a serious kid. And he mastered Mishnayos Baal Peh, Tanakh Baal Peh, Tanya Baal Peh at an early age. During the breaks from Cheder, his friends and his cousins and his nephews he was in class with, some of them would go play. He didn't go play. He didn't play ball or and they probably didn't have ball, but I don't know, whatever toys they had, games, kindische games. No, he used to chazer things Baal Peh. He really ingrained lots of those things in his mind at a young age. When he was a boy, there was a very great rabbi who came to Lubavitch. His name was Reb David Luria. Reb David Luria. Reb David Luria, the Radal. He wrote on many midrashim. He wrote on Gemara. Incredible scholar. Wasn't a chassid, but he wasn't a misnagid. He did his own thing. And for some reason, he had to travel to meet the Tzemach Tzedek. He already had a connection to Lubavitch. He was once, it was Erev Rosh Hashanah in the afternoon. He was in a wagon with a chassid of the Alter Rebbe called Reb Velvel Vilenker. And it was getting late, but they were in the middle of nowhere. And Reb Velvel Vilenker says, I'm not spending Rosh Hashanah on the side of the road. I have no shofar. We're going to the nearest town. And Reb David Luria says, what do you mean? It's late. It's almost sundown. It's almost shkia. And Reb David Luria wanted to stop the wagon. So Reb Velvel tells the wagon driver to schmeiss the fair, hit him harder. And the horses were flying so fast that Reb David Luria couldn't jump off. He wanted to jump off. He couldn't. It was dangerous. And Reb Velvel's hitting the horses, and he says, I once heard a mimer from the Alter Rebbe what it means to hear shofar, okay? And I'm not missing the shofar. And they went, and they came, I don't know what time, they came to the... Anyhow, so David Luria already he knew a bit about the Lubavitch, and he came to the Tzemach Tzedek, and while he was there, he chapped a shmooze with the Rebbe Maharash, who was 8, 9 years old, somewhere around there, under Bar Mitzvah. And they had a machlokas in learning. Reb David Luria was an older Torah genius, and Maharash was a boy, and they go back and forth, and Reb David Luria conceded that the Rebbe Maharash was right in whatever point they were arguing. So someone told the Tzemach Tzedek, you heard your little son, he outwits this great Torah scholar. So the Tzemach Tzedek said, what are you so excited about? The Rebbe Maharash's bris, the sphera of that day in the Omer is Tiferes Shebenetzach. Netzach is to be victorious. So he has it in his blood to be victorious. Which leads us to number one. Many of the sources on the pages here come from the Rebbe's Rishimis, all scattered, all from different, it took a while to collect all this. Many of the stories were discussed by the Friedrich Rebbe in his Siches. The Rebbe mentioned them at different times by Fabrengens or the Rebbe's letters. But it was quicker for me just to get it from the Rishimis. Also, this is the Rebbe's own handwriting. It's the Rebbe's own words. So it's it's going to suffice for tonight. Look at number 1. The Rebbe writes, "B'yoisei keben asar Hashem." These are things that the Rebbe heard from the Frierdiker Rebbe privately, and the Rebbe wrote down in his diary. When the Rebbe Maharash was 10 years old, v'lamdu azar bo b'yachad. There were 4 kids learning together. There was the Rebbe Maharash Nishmasa Eden and his nephew Reb Shlomo Zalman. There was a rivalry between the Rebbe Maharash and he had a nephew called Shlomo Zalman from Kapist. The Rebbe Maharash's oldest brother was Baruch Shalom. Baruch Shalom was the firstborn. He actually was missing, one of his hands was missing the fingers. He was a Baal Mum, he never became a Rebbe, the only brother that didn't. He became a chassid of his younger brother, the Rebbe Maharash, although there's what?
The Rebbe's great.
Yeah, the Rebbe comes from that line. The second son of the Tzemach Tzedek was Yehuda Leib, the Maharil, who's going to become the Rebbe of Koppus, and we'll talk about that. But the Maharil had a son called Shlomo Zalman. He's the Rebbe Maharash's nephew. He was older than the Rebbe Maharash, and there was some good Geschmacka rivalry, and we'll see some funny stories about that. But says Reb Shlomo Zalman, the son of Maharil of Koppus, he was older than the Rebbe Maharash by 2.5 years. It could even be 3 years. And there were 2 other Eineklach of the Tzemach Tzedek. And the Tzemach Tzedek entered to faher them. So the Rebbe Maharash asked a kasha, and the other guys, part of this cheder group, answered the question. And the Rebbe Maharash was doiches to Rutzum. He said that's not a good answer. The Tzemach Tzedek was there, and he supplied, what should have been the final answer. No, the Yikshem Maharash, the Rebbe Maharash as a kid, he challenges his father. He has a kasha on his father. And the Tzemach Tzedek tells him, when you get older, you'll understand. At this point, there were 4 kids learning to either Tzemach Tzedek came to faher them. At some point, it was family. His only family over here. The cheder class, Bechlal, was mostly family. There were a few other kids there, some bright kids, but it was mostly family. At this point, there was just 4 kids from the family. So that when the Rebbe Maharash challenged the Tzemach Tzedek said, "When the West Eltever, you know what they say, when you get older, you'll understand." So the Rebbe Maharash said, "Fakert, when I get older, I'll ask better questions. Als ich wel größer when I get bigger, will ich fragen größer, I'll ask better kashas." So the Tzemach Tzedek said, "Loi lechinam is given hasoras ha'arla b'tiferes shebenetzach." It wasn't for naught that his bris was on Tiferes Shebenetzach. In other words, again, he has that exactly the will to be victorious. Fine. So that's about you see the bit that in the youth of the Rebbe Maharash. Number 2 is a different story. It was the Rebbe Maharash was sitting there. Again, his nephew Shlomo Zalman and the son of Nehemiah Dubrovner. Nehemiah Dubrovner was one of the greatest scholars that Chabad Chassidus saw. His scholarship was particularly in Gemara. He was a brilliant scholar in Nigla. In fact, the Tzemach Tzedek once said that Nehemiah Dubrovner, Rabbi Isaac Homler was a big scholar, said that Tzemach Tzedek, Rabbi Isaac Homler doesn't reach the heels of Nehemiah Dubrovner in Nigla. Chassidus is different. But in Nigla, Nehemiah Dubrovner was the king. By the way, I'll throw in another story. Reb Nehemiah of Dubrovna, he actually married one of the Alter Rebbe's granddaughters. He, at some point in his life, went into self-imposed exile. And he was traveling with a group of beggars from town to town. And he says something to the guy next to him who he thinks is just a beggar. And the guy responds back a very sharp comment. Back and forth. Within a few minutes, they're spewing Gemaras from all over Shas. The other guy was Reb David Luria, the same guy we mentioned before. They both were traveling incognito, and as luck would have it, as fate would have it, they were next to each other. So Reb David Luria tells Nehemiah Dubrovner, "You must be a chassid." So Nehemiah asks, what gave it away? So Reb David Luria says, because if you weren't, the whole world would be screaming about your greatness. There would be no way you could travel incognito like this. So Nehemiah Dubrovner had a son who was also part of this group. It was a group of very, very intelligent boys, but the Rebbe Maharash felt that the others weren't up to par. He was a step ahead, and he spoke about it. He wasn't quiet about it. He used to say comments that the other guys, they're fashed up, they're kept, they have closed minds. As a kid, the Rebbe Maharash was vocal, and there was a rivalry. It's a fact. And at a certain point, the Rebbe Maharash's brother Yehuda Leib walks into the classroom, and he tells the teacher, "You have to stop siding with the Shmuel, with my brother Shmuel. He's making tzaras, he's making other people. He tells the teacher, you got to stop siding, supporting this little Shmuel over here." So join me in number 2. So the Rabbi Yehuda Leib tells the teacher, "By the way, my son Shlomo Zalman is older than his uncle, Rabbi Shmuel." So Admur Maharash in number 2, the Maharash was sitting the entire time on the side. Omar bin Chusa, he said calmly, as if he was speaking to himself, "Der Far trok der langere Hosen," therefore he wears long pants. I'm pretty sure he's referring to his nephew, the Shlomo Zalman, who was 2-3 years older than him. Yeah, he's older than me. That's why he wears longer. He's bigger than me, so he wears longer pants. And like Yaakov Lev, the Baal Agola says, "Was langer der Rücken," the longer the back, breiter the hinten, and wider the tachas, is mehr Pferd, is more of a horse. In other words, Yehuda Leib, the Maharil, told the teacher that my son is bigger, is older than my brother. So the Maharash said, "Yeah, Taka, my nephew is bigger than me. You know, the larger the back, the bigger the tachas, is a bigger horse." So the Maharil heard this and he said, "Bizgor abal hazornik, your mamash a chutzpaniak." So the Maharash responded, not even respond, he just, as if talking to himself, said, "Ich hab afen es." Right? It says, "Kabed es avicha." Es comes to include your older brother. That's the Rebbe's K nearly. Mem is the Rebbe's name. Whenever there's brackets, that's the Rebbe adding his own commentary to. It's almost what the Rebbe writes is perfectly what he heard from the Friedrich Rebbe. Any emendations, additions, he puts in the brackets and he signs off with his name Mem. But the Rebbe Maharash tells his brother, "Taka, I need to respect you because of S. But you have to respect me because of a different S. Du bruderul hast afen es to Rabbi Akiva." Rabbi Akiva says, when the pasuk says you have to fear it, Es Hashem alekecha tir, you got to fear the Eibishter. S comes to include a scholar. So you have to respect me as the greater scholar. He's telling this to the Maharil who's 20 years. The Rebbe Maharash is not even bar mitzvah. His older brother is in his 30s. He tells his older brother, "I have to respect you as you're my older brother. But don't forget, you have to respect the bigger scholar." Okay? So there was many of these such stories. What? And the divide will only get bigger, unfortunately, later in life. What?
No, he's so much older.
Yeah, much older. Yeah. So you get a picture that Rebbe Maharash in his younger years was no pushover at all. And but yet he was very charming. No one ever accused him of arrogance except for his brother. Bichlal, he was a charming person. Number 3. This is a story that the Rebbe also said once by Fabrengen about when the Rebbe Maharash was younger. Bichlal hab ich nit gehorevet in lernen. The Rebbe Maharash said, Bichlal, when I was younger, I never toiled. What that means is he never had to toil. I want to tell you that the Alter Rebbe once said that when I was younger, anything I put my mind to, I grasped right away. The Alter Rebbe said whether it was learning, whether it was mathematics, anything the Alter Rebbe, any puzzle, any difficult, right? The Alter Rebbe solved some difficult mathematical equations. It was without any effort. It was just so simple for him. And the Alter Rebbe said, "You think it made me happy?" The Alter Rebbe said, "It destroyed me. I walked around feeling that I had nothing to do. Like if there's no challenge, you can't accomplish." The Alter Rebbe said, for years I was tormented, until the Alter Rebbe says, the first time I walked into the room of Magid of Mizrich, when he was just before he turned 19, and then the Magid, he revealed to me, he paved for me a path of avodah for the rest of my life, and then I realized that there's, it's not going to be so easy forever, and I was very happy to hear that. I finally felt that I had something to work on, something to achieve. So the Rebbe Maharash said a similar thing. When I was younger, I never had to toil. Amol hab ich gelernt, as it says, Masechta Menachos, und gut gelernt. I learned entire Menachos, and I knew it very well. My father, Tzemach Tzedek, verheard me, and he was very happy. I knew it all. Then my father, Bavais der Miran Ort, he shows me a certain page of the Gemara. He said, Du hast gehorevet? Did you have to work on this? And I answered, B'chlal hab ich nicht gehorevet. I b'chlal didn't have to toil. So my father gave a sigh. Hat tata krechsen getan. My father said, Wie kann man kennen lernen, als man horevet nicht? How could you ever learn if you don't toil? And the Rebbe Maharash said, Der krechs hat mir durchgenommen bis zum 12th rib. The sigh of my father broke me till my 12th rib. An expression. Vichlati, I decided on the spot, anheben horevet, now I'm going to toil. But he says, lang hat es nicht angehalten, didn't last long. Bei mir sein Arois fliames auf den Sternen. The Rebbe Maharash, when he started to toil, he didn't just break a sweat. Blood would protrude from his forehead. He had blood stains on his forehead, so he had to back off a little. So it was either no toil or way too intense. And then he finishes off. I don't know what this means. Danach pflege ich anstellen dem koyach ha'ien wie man stellt an a Zeger. From then on, when I would have to analyze something, I would carefully measure it the same way you wind a clock. In other words, I guess the exact amount, not too little, not too much.
He's saying I had to measure how much exertion I was.
Yeah, I'm saying not too little, not too much. Can't overdo it, but fine. Time goes on. The Rebbe Maharash gets married. He married his niece, his first wife. The Rebbe Maharash was as first wife, he was, I think he was even 13. His first wife, Nebuch, was the daughter of one of his brothers. And during Sheva Brachas, she got ill, and she died 2 months later. It was very sad. The Rebbe Maharash was young. He was a young teenager. And the Tzemach Tzedek, to comfort him, he told him, come to my room whenever you want. And he spent a lot of time with the Rebbe Maharash, more than any of the other brothers. The Maharash was the youngest, and Nebuch, he suffered such a tragedy, very sad. Not so long later, a year or so later, the Rebbe Maharash got married a second time to his first cousin, a granddaughter of the Mittler Rebbe, Rebbetzin Rivka, the famous Rebbetzin Rivka. And the Rebbe Maharash ultimately has 4 sons, and he suffered tragedy again. One of the Rebbe Maharash's sons, Avram Sender, passed away at the age of 8. 8-year-old boy passed away. And the Rebbe Maharash was so broken. And he went to his father, Tzemach Tzedek, and he said, Tata, I think I know why this happened. And he gave an explanation why he thinks it happened. And the Tzemach Tzedek said, no, it's not because of that. The Tzemach Tzedek said, your son had the soul of the Alter Rebbe. He had to come back to rectify, but it was only a short amount of time. That's why at 8 years old he passed away. There's no sin or malpractice on your part. But it was a tragedy. It was another knock to the Rebbe Maharash. And we're going to see, B'chal, the Rebbe Maharash was very ill his whole life. Money he had. He was very wealthy. The Rebbe Maharash was, and we'll talk about that. But he had personal tzaras. He was ill, lost his first wife, lost a son, and he had other tzaras from one of his other kids. So, you win some, you lose some. That's just...
Was that the blood from the forehead? Because he was, ill?
I don't know if it's related. That's interesting. I don't know if it's related. We'll see a little bit about the mystery about his illness. So, Menachem Mendel. The Rebbe Maharash had 3 surviving sons. The Rebbe Rashab, Rebbe Zalman Aden, and Menachem Mendel. Menachem Mendel was a businessman, which is fine. But the Rebbe Maharash had sorrows from him that he, I don't even know, it's a bit of a mystery. But he left town, and something he did hurt the Rebbe Maharash, actually could have contributed to the Rebbe Maharash's passing. Maybe we'll get back to it soon. So ultimately, the Tzemach Tzedek passes away in the year 1866. And he leaves behind 6 sons, all giants of the spirit. They were Gaonim in Nigla and Kabbalah. They were holy people. In fact, the Rebbe Maharash was the only one that stood out as a sore thumb, excuse my expression, because the Rebbe Maharash had been a businessman. The Rebbe Maharash, when he was younger, made a lot of money. He actually won a number of lotteries. Somehow he had a knack in winning lotteries, but he was involved in the stock market. There's a well-known story. The Rebbe Maharash once sent his agent to there was a big fair, and he told his agent, I want you to buy from a certain merchandise X amount. He was very specific what to buy, exactly how much, and we expect it to rise, and then we'll sell. The agent travels. He goes to the market and he sees that Rebbe Maharash said to buy only X amount. If he buys the entire that entire line of merchandise, he'll have a monopoly, and he'll make a killing. It'll go up tenfold. So he's too far from the Maharash. He can't ask any questions, but he had the money, and he bought the entire line. And he's really hoping it's going to hit big, and he's waiting and waiting. And taka, it rises like tenfold. He sells it. He comes back to Lubavitch with suitcases of cash. He comes to the room of the Rebbe Maharash. Now the Rebbe Maharash was not yet Rebbe. He was a son of the Tzemach Tzedek. He comes into the Rebbe Maharash's room. Tons of money. The Rebbe Maharash says, "What's this? What's this?" So the guy said, I followed your advice, but I went even further. The Rebbe Maharash said, No. I'm only going to take the exact amount that we had discussed. The rest may legally belong to me. You use mine, it's legally mine, but it has no shaykhs to my soul. When I send you think I'm sending you because I need to make money? No. A tzaddik sees, every person, when the soul comes to this world, you have your family, you have your friends, and then there's physical items in the world that you need to get in touch with. Whether it's money, whether it's a certain house, a certain car, a certain boat, whatever it might be, certain clothes. And when you get in touch with it and use it properly, you elevate it. A regular person we don't have the glasses to know which physical items are related to it. A tzaddik can tell, a tzaddik can see. So the Maharash said, I was very specific. There was a certain amount of money for spiritual reasons I needed to get. The rest I don't want to see anymore, even though it was legally his. So, but everyone knew that Rebbe Maharash was involved in these things, and different than his other brothers who were learning and teaching Torah all day. They were spiritual people. He was looked as a worldly man, a great man, but a worldly man. So, the Tzemach Tzedek passes away. What's going to happen now? The Tzemach Tzedek's oldest son, Baruch Shalom, is not opening up shop. His father told him not to. The Baruch Shalom wasn't going to open up his own shop. But 4 of the other brothers did. One was Yehuda Leib, who went to Kopist, the Maharil of Kopist. By the way, he only lived for 6 more months and then he died. The Maharil, who went to Kopist, died only a few months later. His son, Shlomo Zalman, the Rebbe Maharash, he's the main Rebbe of Kopist for over 3 decades. And he said lots of chassidus. And another brother, Yisrael Noach, went to Nezhin, where the Mittel Rebbe is buried. The third brother, Chaim Shner Zalman, went to Liadi. Cute, he carries his Zayda, the Alter Rebbe's name, went to Liadi. Another brother, Yosef Yitzchak, went to Avruch. But the Rebbe Maharash remained in Lubavitch. Now, why did he get Lubavitch? He had the smallest group, by the way. Kopist had tens of thousands of people. The Rebbe Maharash, in his first Tishrei, barely had a minyan. So why did he remain in Lubavitch? What happened was, after Tzemach passed away, there was a famous Din Torah. 3 of the greatest Rabbonim of Lubavitch got together. Reb Yosef Tamarkin, and there was the Torah's Chesed, Reb Shner Zalman Fradkin, who was a great Torah genius. He was on the Bezdin, and the Bezdin paskind that the Rebbe Maharash gets the rights to Lubavitch, to the city of Lubavitch, and not just that, these Rabbonim, here, it's the same one, Simon. One? The Tzemach Tzedek, the Rebbe Maharash was given Lubavitch, and these Rabbonim really were pushing people to go to the Rebbe Maharash, but it didn't catch on. In fact, the Torah's Chesed, again, Reb Shner Zalman Fradkin, was one of the greatest Torah geniuses of the day, recognized across the world. He was living in Polotsk at the time. But after this Din Torah, and he was, he pushing people to go to the Rebbe Maharash in Lubavitch, he was attacked. I don't know physically, but many of the Chassidim in Polotsk went to Kopist, and they told the Torah's Chesed, they gave him a very difficult time. He had to leave the city. The Torah's Chesed had to run away from Polotsk because he had supported the Rebbe Maharash. And he went to Lublin. He had to go to Poland, out of the country to Poland. And he became known as the Lubliner Goin, the genius of Lublin. the Torah's chesed. In fact, it's noteworthy. When the Rogatchover was younger, the Rogatchover already had outshone all of his teachers, and the Rogatchover apparently wasn't sure if he wanted to live the life of a chassid. He wanted to be convinced that he should live, even though the Rogatchover's father was a kopis to chassid. The Rogatchover as a kid was by the Tzemach Tzedek, but the Rogatchover apparently, was wanted to be convinced. So he went to Lublin, and he spent a bit of time by the Torah's chesed. And that apparently impressed the Rogatchover to the point that he's going to live the life of a chassid. So that's a big thing, because the Rogatchover wasn't expelled from pretty much any of the other Torah scholars of the day. But it's interesting, the Torah's chesed had to run away from Polotsk, move to Poland, because of the beef that he had with the Chabad Chassidim in his town, that they accused him of, how could you be supporting the Rebbe Maharash, the youngest brother, a businessman. So you get a bit of, you can imagine, yeah? And he didn't back down. He just said, no. He left the country. So, where are we holding over here? No, I got it over here. So join me in number 4. The Rebbe Maharash had a showdown with his brother, the Maharil. This is almost right after the Tzemach Tzedek passed away. The showdown was, the Rebbe Maharash said a mimer. His brother said over the same mimer with an addition. The Rebbe Maharash said the same mimer with his own addition. It was like a ping pong game. Each one was adding, until the Rebbe Maharash had the final say. Look at me in number 4. Va'oz nigash elov, the Maharil said to the Rebbe Maharash, Vayomer, and he said, and here the Rebbe writes that the Frierdiker Rebbe motioned with his hands. Ka'adam hamara sha'ata ein yachla. The Frierdiker made a hand motion like you do when you're given you wave the white flag. You have nothing else to say. The Maharil told his younger brother, "Das sagst nit du." That mimer was not said by you. That was the Tata speaking through you, and therefore I'm not going to respond. So the Rebbe Maharash said to him, I told you might be 20 years older than me physically, but I'm older than you because I was born to our father when he was 20 years older than he was when he gave birth to you. Yeah. So with my father's years, which apparently means that because I was born to the Tzemach Tzedek when he was 20 years greater than he was when he gave birth to you, so I was born on a higher pedestal. I'm greater than you. The Rebbe spoke about this by Fabrengens. Mit the Tatas Yoren, I'm older than you. So then Maharash had to come back for that. But unfortunately, the fight got messy. It got messy. The Chassidim of the different Rebbes, they would mock the others. It got really bad. Look at number 5. This is one story the Rebbe writes. Bekayitz, again, all these are all taken from different places in the Rebbe's Rishimus. This was in the summer after the Tzemach Tzedek passed away. He passed away right before Pesach. So this is 3-4 months later. The Rebbe Maharash was in the Bavitch. He looks out the window. Berechoiv, in the street, over Echad, a guy from Vids, who was Ma'anoshev Shel Aliyadar, who had joined the Rebbe Maharash's brother, Chaim Shnei Zalman, who's in Liyadi. When he saw the Rebbe Maharash, this chassid of Chaim Shnei Zalman sees the Rebbe Maharash through the window. Neifif be'egrofa, he waves with his fist towards the Rebbe Maharash. The Rebbe Maharash chiach, he laughs. Then the guy stuck out 3 fingers, one between 2, whatever that means. So I don't know exactly what that was meant to be.
The middle finger. Yes.
No, he stuck 3 fingers. He stuck. Look what happened. The Rebbe Maharash gazed at him, and the guy's hand was stuck like that forever. The Tishor Yado Ish, the man's hand was stuck as he spread it out. He couldn't move it. He became ill, weaker and weaker. 4 months later, he died. The guy asked Rebbe Maharash for forgiveness. No, there was no.
Kappas.
No, Liadi.
I know, but remember the story of the kappas.
The guy, it's mashma from the Rebbe that this person asked for forgiveness, But it's too late. The decree was the Gzar Din.
Pretty harsh stuff.
Very harsh. Imagine the guy
The
could.
guy went after Kappas, and he came back and he lost all his learning.
So this is that's a pretty. So you see, the Rebbe Maharash meant business. He meant business. This is a pretty awful story, but it's the guy did it to himself. Anyhow, look at number 6. Number 6, the next page. The Frierdiker Rebbe says, I heard from Monye Monezon. He was a chassid. Shepam bo shliach. Once it happened, the messenger came from so and so. What that means, l'chor, is in the Rebbe's original Rishimus, not everything was printed. When they got the manuscripts of the Rebbe to print, there were some things they left out. Even though we have some good under the belt stories, that's after the filter. Certain things were removed by the Chassidim who, and that exists wherever it exists. I don't have that. But in the original copy, it would have said who sent this messenger. Here they took it out. This messenger came to the Rebbe Maharash and he said that the guy that sends me wants to come to Lubavitch. He wants to learn with the Rebbe Maharash 3 times Chassidus, and not in one day, spread out. The Rebbe Maharash answered, a Pashton, someone who focuses, the guy that sent him was a big scholar who focused on Pshat of Tanakh. A ferd veis God von kein Himmelnit. A horse never sees the heaven, right? An animal looks down. One of the biggest blessings is that the Ruach of Adam, you walk straight, you could see the heavens. An animal nebuch is always gazes at the ground, doesn't know of the heavens. So the Rebbe Maharash said, the guy that wants to come is a Pashton. He focuses on the Pshat. He's a horse. He doesn't know of heaven. I'm not allowing him to come to learn Chassidus. Now, I would tell you, I've heard who it was, but I'm not going to say on the recording because what it says in the next line. The Rebbe Maharash said about this person, Baruch HaMokem, ... I don't even know what that means. Then the Frierdiker Rebbe tells the Rebbe, Masha Saparti L'cha, this that I told you, She'amr, that the Rebbe Maharash said about this person that he was a sorcerer, Shamati rak b'derech hasha'ara she'amar kain. Apparently it's not exact. I heard as an estimation that he said it, or that the Rebbe Maharash said it as an estimation. I don't know, it's very mysterious. But because that's a pretty harsh comment, and therefore after the recording I could tell you what I heard who it was, although I don't know that for sure either. But you see, the Rebbe Maharash, there were no games. This guy was a big scholar, that's a fact. He wanted to come learn Chassidus, and the Rebbe Maharash response is, this guy is no shaykhus, he's a horse. The Rebbe Maharash was, he was sharp. In number 7, you have to know that, how old was he? He was about 33 years old. 33 years old. He was only a Rebbe for, till he was 48.
15 years.
Okay. Look in number 6. So you ever heard of the smile of the Maggid of Mezrich? The Frierdiker Rebbe tells us elsewhere that the Maggid of Mezrich had a smile that was irresistible. And he passed it over to the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe, with that smile, he could have bought the entire world, but he never used it. That's the tradition. So over here, the Admunish Mosaiden, the Rebbe Rashab asked his father, the Maharash, if this shmeichel, this smile, if it goes in Yerusha, do all the Rabbeim have this special smile, this charismatic shmeichel? So the Rebbe Maharash said, a neshama from Atzilus, or a neshama klalis, a neshama of a nasi that includes the neshamas of all the people, a neshama olyona, they have that smile. That's what he said. The Rebbe Rashab then said, Azah bal yisurim begufay viter tata, someone who suffered so much like my father, habich nit bagegent, I never came across. Now I think the Rebbe's adding over here in the brackets, the chiddush was not only the Rebbe suffered so much, but he always had a smile on his face. But there's a question mark there, so it's not clear if. But it seems like that's the pshat. He suffered so much, but he always had a smile. He suffered so much physically. Bal Yisurim Begufay. The Rebbe Maharash was very big. He was very large. Some believe that added to his contributed to his illness. Others say fakert. It was a result from his illness. But he was very large and had all types of issues. We'll get more to what the end was. It's shrouded in mystery. Like here, we don't have any details, just the fact that he physically suffered. But yet he always had a smile on his face.
We don't know the exact illness.
At the end of his life, there were those that said he got Yener Machla at the end of his life. I saw in one place that there's a rumor that when the Rebbe heard about it, he didn't want people... He made a motion that he doesn't want people to talk about that. So there was right away, does that mean it's not true or just people shouldn't speak about it? Mystery. What's awful? The Rebbe didn't. Someone said Yener Machla, and the Rebbe motioned as if we shouldn't speak about that. Unclear if it's not true or just shouldn't be spoken about. But there is. Right. Well, we'll see about it soon. But because you asked, I'll just jump the gun. Before the Rebbe Maharash, right before he passed away, he had a surgery in his head, and the doctor left a tool inside his head and sewed it up. The doctor left something inside, and they sewed it up, and that brought about his passing. Yeah, awful. So when I used to say a joke, and after I heard this, I couldn't say the joke anymore. But there's an old joke that there's a guy who needs surgery, and he goes to a doctor, he gets his surgery, and he comes out to the waiting room, and he meets someone. So, what are you doing? I just got surgery from this and this doctor. So the guy says, I heard crazy things. I heard that doctor, when he operates, he leaves items inside the patient. And the guy starts shaking. All of a sudden, the doctor comes out to the waiting room. Did anyone see my hat? But then you hear the story that Rebbe Maharash, frightening. It's mamash how he passed away. Awful. Now, the Rabbeim never said that. Chassidim told this over. I don't think the Rebbe ever said, at least not publicly. I don't even know where it's recorded, but it's been told by Chassidim that this is what happened. That's ultimately how he passed away. The clincher was that. There was some operation, and Dr. Pasha left something, don't even know what it was. And he sewed it up, and awful. But number 7, you see that Rebbe Rashab said, no, I never met someone who suffered physically like my father, yet he always had a smile. The Rebbe Maharash had a great sense of humor. It's well known. Somebody once came to the Rebbe Maharash and he said, Rebbe, I have a problem, Pashat. My cow's not giving milk. And this guy was a bit of a self-acclaimed Kabbalist. He said, I think maybe in one of my Averis I stained the Hey law, the letter Hey in heaven. So my para became a par. It's acting like a male, like a bull, instead of a cow. It's not giving milk. So the Rebbe Maharash said, I think maybe you were poigim in the hay tata, the hay down here. You're not feeding your cow enough. Hay, the hay, literally the hay. The hay tata, not the hay in heaven, the hay down here. And Taka, the guy was a self-acclaimed Kabbalist, wasn't taking care of the physical needs of his cow. So Rebbe Maharash had a sharp sense of humor. But as much as he suffered, he had a smile on his face. Interesting. Number 8. When the Rebbe Maharash was 19 or 20 years old, he was ill. And it seems like at that point he was ill for the rest of his life. So from when he was 19, the illness that ultimately took his life began. Lots of white. I don't know what sharikas are. I saw that in one Hebrew place it has like little balls. I don't know what that means.
White blood cells.
Too many white blood cells. Okay, yeah. But the Rebbe says this was a toitzos machla kosher shechola oz. That was a result from some other illness that he had. There was a Reifa Heibentel, a famous Dr. Heibentel, who helped the Rebbe Maharash then. However, the Tzemach Tzedek had asach keton. The Tzemach Tzedek was very much involved in the health of the Rebbe Maharash. Maharash was young, 19, 20 years old. Hat sich ausgeredet. The Tzemach Tzedek once said, as wollt gewollt, Chotsch wie Shmuel Anovi. The Tzemach Tzedek said, I wish I could get my son to at least live as long as Shmuel Anovi, 52 years. Didn't happen. He passed away at 48. This illness that he had at 19 was Gamkein Sibus P'tirasai. Haunted him for another 28 years till he passed away.
Who's writing this?
This is in the Rebbe's Rishimus. It's what he heard from the Frierdiker Rebbe.
Isn't it that the Tzemach Tzedek once said that he was upset at his son that he didn't tell him about this illness?
Yes, good question. The Rebbe once repeated the story differently. That the Tzemach Tzedek was in the dark. No one told him about it. And the Tzemach Tzedek, when he erst found out later on, he said, if I would have been told, I could have helped and made sure he would live like Shmuel Hanavi. 52 years. But now that I was kept in the dark, he's not going to live that long. That's one version. Here you have the Rebbe writing a bit of a different. He says, "Verkehrt that Tzemach Tzedek hat a sach getan." I don't know how to fit that, but you mentioned it, so it's like mamish opposite versions. But this illness stayed with him till he passed away. But then the Rebbe throws in 2 lines from the bottom of number 8. When he ultimately died, the clincher was emotional pain. What was the pain? We don't know. Some say it was because of his son Menachem Mendel. That was the one. He had Zalman Aaron and the Rebbe Rashab. Menachem Mendel was a businessman who there was some friction there, and he ended up going to France, I think, and that really pulled the heartstrings of the Rebbe Maharash, and ultimately Nebuch took his life. 3 weeks before Rosh Hashanah, the Rebbe Maharash passed away Yud Gimel Tishrei, right after Yom Kippur. 3 weeks before Rosh Hashanah, the illness Takva became much worse. Even though really the entire last year he was very ill, but the last 3 weeks before Rosh Hashanah, the last month basically, was even worse. Come to number 9. This is very sad. It was Rosh Hashanah time. I think it was right before Rosh Hashanah, 2 weeks before he passed away. He went to the room of his wife, Rebbe and Rivka. Right? They're not that old, they're in their 40s. And he told his wife that I just saw my father in a vision. And my father told me that the Gzeir, there was going to be pogroms. The pogroms, hat sich gebrochen, that's broken. Pogromen in Kashmir wird nicht sein, there won't be physical pogroms. But Beruchnius there will be. And the Rebbe says here, I don't remember the letters, the exact words the Frierdiker Rebbe said. And the Rebbe Maharash told his wife, "Zos hitten die Kinder, you should look after the kids." That's what he told his wife. So Rebbe and Rivka began to cry, and she said, "No, you're going to get better. We're going to live on together." And the Rebbe Maharash told her that the heaviness of the decree of these pogroms I've taken upon myself. And he told her, "Taka will be together, but in 2 different worlds." It's a very it's a heart-wrenching, if you can imagine it playing out. It's very, very sad. This is exactly 2 weeks before he died. He's only 48 years old. He said, Taka will be beyachad, aber from basundere Welten, in different worlds. And he told her, I'm going 31 steps in Ruchnius, you'll go 31 steps in Gashmius. We'll see what that means. And then he told her that for you, my father promised a long life. So the Frierdiker Rebbe tells the Rebbe, all this I heard from my Baba, Rebbe and Rivka, and I didn't know what this whole 31 business was until she passed away. She passed away 31 years after that conversation she had with the Rebbe Maharash.
Wow.
Incredible. It's mamish, it's mind-boggling to imagine that. Unbelievable.
How old?
How old was she? I don't know, mid-70s? Something like that.
She was young.
Yeah, well, upper 70s. So, okay, hold on. So, in number 10, so there was an incredible Farbrengen in Tovshin Lamed Tes. It was the beginning of Lamed Tes, so it was 1978. It was Yud Gimel Tishrei, the Rebbe Maharash's yard site, and the Rebbe gave a whole Farbrengen. And the Rebbe discussed something there which was beautiful. What? That's the bold letters is what the Frierdiker Rebbe told the Rebbe. Yeah, he said when my Baba told me the story while she was alive, I didn't get it, but when she passed away, I connected the dots. It was exactly 31 years. So the Rebbe spoke a beautiful idea. I just want to share it about the Rebbe Maharash. Why there's so much mystery about his life. The Rebbe Maharash once said a famous statement. The Welt says, try and go under the obstacle, go around. If it doesn't work, jump over. And ich sag lechatchila go over. The Rebbe Maharash maybe said that once. We don't know how many times he said it. But the Rebbe took this as the mantra, that this was the Rebbe Maharash's slogan for life. And during this Farbrengen, the Rebbe discussed how in every area of the Rebbe Maharash's life, you find this. That there was things were great, things were royal, things were polished, things were just extravagant. There was an abundance. Someone goes down the narrow, so you have an issue, you try and work with it. But then there's the American look. Go big, right? Everything in America is big. I come from Australia. Things there aren't so big. In in Australia, you go to a store, you get a soda. In America, you have to upgrade. You have to get the extra large, extra large, right?
Big gold.
Everything. In Australia, when you sue someone, you sue $100,000. In America, you don't sue for anything less than $50 million, right? I know lawyers that unless you're suing for $150 million, they won't even take the case. In Australia, it's much the whole thing. You sue $100,000 you have to explain every dollar you're suing for. Here, for $50 million you're suing because the guy looked at you the wrong way. Unbelievable. But that's the Chatchila Rib, Pasha to go breit. Mamish beyond all, there's no limitations. Breitkeit. And so look at number 10. The Rebbe said, first of all, the way the Rebbe Maharash spoke Chassidus. The Rebbe says that you take a mime of the Rebbe Rashab, he's usually discussing one idea. At length, he takes it apart. By the Rebbe Maharash in one mimer, you can have so many, it's packed. He packs it in. So many ideas, one to the other, to the other, to the other. Masha'enkin in the Mamorim of the Rebbe Maharash, gefindt men in demselben mimer, in the same mimer, a ribui mamor. One mimer, really, you can divide into so many. There's so much packed in there. There's no poverty, it's just wealth. There's no anias, it's extravagant. The mimer are not 100 pages each, they're in an 8-page mimer, but there's so much in there. The Rebbe used to say over a story that his Zayda, Reb Meir Shlomo Yanovsky, was in Nikolaev. And after he got married, he went to Lubavitch to spend some time learning there. And when he came back to Nikolaev, he spoke about the wealth of the Rebbe Maharash. And there was a guy there that found that very distasteful. What does a tzaddik need all of that money for? So the Meir Shlomo told this guy, Petach, you fool, who do you think God made gold and silver for? For me and for you? God made it for the tzaddikim. There's extra, other people can benefit as well. So the Rebbe says like this, in the way he said Mamorim, look at the second paragraph of number 10. Wie me gefind Take, in Mamorim of the Rebbe Rashab, that a whole mimer could be taking one line from his father's mimer and break it down to a whole explanation. But the Rebbe Rash's mimer was just a small part. The Rebbe Rash would pack in so much. Was das kuf in the third paragraph of number 10. This shows off an initial mam did by the Rebbe Maharash. There was no limitations. There's no till here and not further. That the Urish loy berch suder kli just pour. There was an outpouring. So that was in Chassidus. Look on the next page, in number 11. In number 11 is that when the Rebbe Maharash would say a mimer, he would sometimes throw in a word or a few words that had no connection to the mimer, and not everyone would hear it. Mamash, a magical feat. Kara, in the third line in number 11, sometimes it happened that one person heard certain words, a second guy heard some other words. No relation to the mimer. All of a sudden, in the middle of the mimer, the Rebbe Maharash would throw in random things, and only to the person who was designated to would that person actually hear it. And he once said, "Vos is die Pula? What's the purpose of Rabbas Machshavas Belevish, of having so many thoughts in a person's heart, if the Eibishter's Eitz is going to be the end of the day?" The Rebbe Rashab asked his father for a gift. I want, when you say a mimer, I should hear everything. I want to hear all of those snippets you stick in. And the Rebbe actually discusses this in a letter that he wrote. The Rebbe Rashab was the only one that would hear everything because he asked for it as a gift. Fascinating. So in number 12, the Rebbe discusses this back in this Farbrengen. You find the Chatchila Ariber in his physical activity. He says, is Yodua in the second paragraph of number 12, that we know what the Friedrich Rebbe said, that by the Rebbe Maharash there was a ribuy in Yonim al derech von Baal Shem Tzvi in Yonim. The Rebbe Maharash specifically was known to be similar to the Baal Shem Tov. Stories. I'll throw in one story, but anyone that wants to go, you can go. But this is just a wild story. That it's a short story. There was a guy who grew up in a frum family in Russia. Teenage years, got mixed with bad friends, and ultimately he left Yiddishkeit. He married a non-Jewish woman, had a family, and he was a musician, very successful musician. He would play for the aristocracy, very successful musician. One night he has a dream. His father comes to him in a dream, and he says, "Moshe, what's going on with you? It's time to come back to your roots." Wakes up with a cold sweat, right? But it's a dream. But he has the dream again and again, and he starts to feel out of sorts. One night he was playing at a big event, and all of a sudden, on stage, he sees, not in a dream, he physically sees a vision of his father. And his father says, "Moshe." He lost it. He took out his gun. He had a gun on him, and he shot. He shot the image of his father. The whole crowd ran. They ran. Everyone ran for their lives. He ran too. He was in a complete daze, and he ran for hours. Left the city. He ultimately makes it to another town, and he says, "I need to find a rabbi. I need a rabbi." Comes to the Rav, and he tells the Rav the story. And the Rav says, "Listen, I don't deal with these types of things. For that, you got to go to a Chassidic Rebbe. Not far from here is Lubavitch. Go to Reb Shmuel, the Rebbe there." So the guy, he travels to Lubavitch. He comes, he has his turn to walk into the Rebbe Maharash's room. The moment he walks in, the Rebbe Maharash says, "A Sohn soll schießen der Tate? A son should shoot his father?" And the guy fainted on the floor. He lost it. And he woke up, and he had a happy ending. But it was stories like that, mamish like Baal Shem Tzvi stories. So, and the Friedrich Rebbe spoke. The Rebbe is quoting that the Friedrich Rebbe said that you find so many Baal Shem Tov type. Many Rabbeim did miracles, but it was often camouflaged. By the Baal Shem Tov, there was time and space. Lechatchila, didn't exist. It was lechatchila a river. It's not like you're dealing with rules of physics and ever so discreetly breaking the rules of physics. No, the Chatchila Aribra means boom, time and place takes can disappear, can dissolve for the time being.
That exists like that today, that everybody kind of agrees.
No. No one that everyone kind of agrees. I mean, we would say it about the Rebbe, but even to be honest, by the Rebbe, many Misnagdim would not agree that it's true about our Rebbe. The last person, even by the Baal Shem Tov, the Misnagdim wouldn't have agreed. The last person everyone would have agreed, maybe the Arizal. That everyone would agree, and even there, even Moshe Rabbeinu had antagonists. I don't think there's ever been anyone that everyone agreed. If everyone agreed, Mashiach would have been here. Maybe that's why Mashiach hasn't come. You can't agree. The Alter Rebbe once said that Mashiach is going to be a Weltische Yid, a regular Jew. He's not going to be a Chassid, because if he's a Chassid, the Misnagdi would never accept him. The Alter Rebbe once said that. There's a tradition he said that, yeah. I don't know exactly what it means. There's different interpretations, but he said that. So back over here. So, like in the third paragraph, Bizvanet, that the Baalei Tshuva that happened by the Rebbe Maharash, look after the bracket, is das euch gewen auf a Baal Shem Tzvi. The famous story when he went to that the Rebbe said in the first Maimon at Bas Legani, when the Rebbe Maharash traveled to France, he stayed in a hotel. And he went over to the guy playing cards, right? And he said that the Yain Nesach will be Matamtum Yora. Mamash a Baal Shem Tov type of story. You don't really find that by the other Rabbeim. That Tzemach Tzedek was an expert in finding lost husbands. It's well known. Right. Women would come, my husband, I don't know, you went to the army, I haven't seen him for 15. That Tzemach Tzedek would tell her where the town, and he was always on. So someone once said to the Tzemach Tzedek, this is heavenly stuff. You must have direct access to heaven. I was like, no, what are you talking about? Tzemach Tzedek said, let's say the last person that I knew. The guy once came to my Yechidus 25 years ago, and he asked me a shayla about business. And I told him that in a certain part of Russia, he would be very successful. So I assumed that's where he was. So I sent his wife there. So that Tzemach Tzedek found these justifications, to weave into the fabric of physics. But by the Rebbe Maharash, it was lechatchila, there was open Ruach HaKodesh. In the fourth paragraph of number 12, Al derech zeh, you find lechatchila Ariber in his own personal life. That about how wealthy he was. He said it's known that by the Rebbe Maharash there was a lot of wealth, there was silver, there was gold, there was lots of jewels. He wrote Avonim Tovis, by the Rebbe Maharash there was beautiful stuff. When the Rebbe Maharash was younger and he made a nice little house for himself. The modern look in those days in Russia was floor-to-ceiling windows. When they sell a big penthouse now, right? For $150 million, there's glass windows, floor-to-ceiling, you bathe in sunlight. So he made such a house that Tzemach Tzedek walks in, and he comments, and he says, by the Zayda, by the Alter Rebbe, he had very small windows. So the Rebbe Maharash said, Mistama was dark in his house. So the Tzemach Tzedek said, no, by the Zayda is given Gor Lichtik. It was very bright. So the Tzemach Tzedek made that comment, but he didn't mix in. He let the Rebbe Maharash do his thing. That Tzemach Tzedek himself lived a very simple life. And the Rebbe actually comments over here that in number 12, the last piece of number 12, Bizvana, to the point that while the Tzemach Tzedek was alive, there was this contrast, that Tzemach Tzedek had so much simplicity. There was like no extravagance at all. Side by side was his young boy, Ben Skunim, who was living like a millionaire. It's in number 13, the Rebbe makes reference to, I'll quote this. The Rebbe says, it's known the story from the Frierdiker Rebbe that he said a nasi is only one at a time. You can never have two at a time. And the Rebbe says that somebody once asked the Frierdiker Rebbe, and I'll tell you, the Rebbe elsewhere says it was him. By this Fabrengen, he says somebody once asked, but elsewhere he says it was him. And he got a harsh response. He asked the Frierdiker Rebbe like this. It's known that Tzemach Tzedek and the Mittler Rebbe had a bit of friction. We don't really talk about it. That Tzemach Tzedek had a direct line to his Zayda. When Tzemach Tzedek's mother passed away, he grew up in his Zayda's bedroom. That Tzemach Tzedek and his Shver, the Mittler Rebbe, there was a bit of friction. That Tzemach Tzedek wouldn't come here, the Mittler Rebbe say Mamorim. So the Rebbe says, and he said this, the Rebbe says that somebody asked the Frierdiker Rebbe that it's as if that Tzemach Tzedek was already acting as a Rebbe while the Mittler Rebbe was alive. And the Frierdiker Rebbe told this person, who was the Rebbe, he said, Chas v'sholom, he said, Shah, a Rebbe can only be one person at a time. It can't be that Tzemach Tzedek was already acting as a Rebbe while the Mittler Rebbe was alive. So the Rebbe extrapolates, so too by the Tzemach Tzedek and the Rebbe Maharash. A Rebbe is only one at a time. Yet you had this dichotomy. The Rebbe Maharash lived next door to his father. The Tzemach Tzedek had ultimate simplicity, and the Rebbe Maharash had extravagance. It was like mamash, black and white. And the Rebbe spoke at this Fabrengen. This Messiah knew about it, and he was okay with it. Why? Because this represented the Rebbe Maharash's journey in life. It was the whole lechatchila Ariber. It was the way he lived. It was the way he taught Chassidus. It's the way he dealt with government officials. And you see, it's even as a kid. He wasn't a pushover, right? It was extravagant. He was very open. He was bold. He had guts. And in number 14, at the end of that Fabrengen, the Rebbe said, I could add a lot more in this, going through every part of the Rebbe Maharash's life and seeing how it's soiva v'hoilach, the whole Indian of Chatzkila Rebbe. Mikam Sibus, it'll be adequate what we said until now, but ten l'chocham v'yechkam oit. In other words, you, the crowd, study this further, and you'll see how so much of the Rebbe Maharash's life, in fact, every aspect, is a link to L'chatchila Ariber. What does it mean in life? The Rebbe would tell people, you're struggling with something. Health, finance, family, work, everything it might be. You can either try and tackle the issue, and then what's going to happen? Maybe you win, maybe you won't, maybe get hurt along the way. L'chatchila Ariber means to kind of ignore it as much as you can, as if it's non-existent. and then it'll taka disappear. The Rebbe told us to someone even about weight loss. Someone wrote to the Rebbe, they're struggling with weight loss. The Rebbe's response was, the more you focus on it, the more it's going to eat you up. Every day you weigh yourself. You get so angry you feel like the scale itself's an anti-Semite, right? You pick it up, I for sure lost weight. You throw it against the wall. You get so caught up, but you eat yourself up. The Rebbe said, distract yourself. Get involved in something else. Automatically you'll eat less, and before you know it, after a couple months, you'll say, hey, what happened to my stomach? That's a form of lechatchila river. And the Rebbe would, if a Bochrim would write to the Rebbe, they have problem with zera levatola, how should they deal with it? The Rebbe's response was always lechatchila river. You're going to try and tackle the issue. You're going to get bogged down. You're going to feel horrible, and just get involved in something positive. Just jump over it, ride over it. And this is what the Rebbe Maharash is all about. But the Rebbe in this particular Farbrengen tried to weave it through every aspect of his life. Okay. Shkoyach Reb Zalman for joining.